Have you ever had to make a decision on whether to put a loved one into an aged care home? And if so, were you worried about whether they would be properly cared for? Over the last few years, we've been inundated with horror stories of mistreatment and neglect in the aged care sector and staff shortages, which have been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. The government's released a new rating system to help increase transparency in the sector, but there are already serious criticisms. Aged Care and Sports Minister Anika joins us. Minister, welcome back to Breakfast.
Good morning, Sarah.
Minister, there are calls for the star rating system to be pulled down already over concerns that some of the information on these individual homes is out of date. Can you see why that would be distressing for residents and for providers?
Well, the data is absolutely not inaccurate, and this is the opposition saying this, and they would not know transparency if they looked through a window. So I'm unsurprised to hear that they, the day we've launched star ratings, asked for it to be pulled down and to have aged care descend back into the darkness, when the reality, like you say, when we are focused on residents, when we are focused on residents' families and their experience in aged care, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And this is the first time Australian families have ever had the opportunity to see this kind of data and feedback about residential aged care facilities when they make that decision about where they want to put their parents, or where people make that decision about when they want to enter residential aged care.
OK, but the opposition has a point, don't they? Because, for example, the Blue Haven Bonera Aged Care Facility in Kiama in New South Wales has a 3-star rating overall, 4-star compliance rating, note saying it has no compliance issues in a year as at the end of September. But last month, this council-owned facility was revealed to have failed 6 of 8 compliance standards, and there was an improvement notice issued. So that is out of date.
But in that specific case, and there are some others, that improvement notice is subject to a review period. That review period is on foot at the moment, and once it's finalised, it will be reflected on star rating. So right now there's no final decision on that, which is why that's the way it is. But this data is updating, some of it's updating daily, and all of it is being audited.
So Shadow Aged Care Minister Anne Ruston says the ratings should come down until you can be absolutely sure that everything is accurate and up to date. If there is a question over some of these things, or there are notes saying that the data is accurate as to the end of September, shouldn't there be, some additional, maybe, a different category or some sort of notification to indicate to the public that there is perhaps an issue in play which is being worked through, which is still being assessed?
Well, that is exactly why in those very small instances where there is genuinely something in question, that star rating is pulled with an explanatory note on the website until that can be resolved, and then the star rating goes back up.
So overall, around 91% of homes are rated 3 stars and above, and there's a lot of scepticism around that because we've heard so many troubling stories in aged care over the years. How stringent have these assessments been to ensure that the 3-star and above aged care homes are actually adequate?
Yeah, well, more than 60% of the data and information used to determine a star rating is independent. It comes from either the regulator looking at compliance measures, or it comes from residents themselves. We've interviewed across the board more than 20% of residents to ask them what their experience is like at particular facilities, what the food is like at particular facilities, and that is the information that you can look up on My Aged Care and see. So more than 60% of that information is independent. And I think what's important is it's comprehensive. You can click right through. If food is something that you really care about, you can click through at an individual facility and see what the experience is like there. Ultimately, we are giving so much more information and therefore so much more power to residents and their families. And honestly, I want this to spark a conversation. I'm ambitious for aged care. I don't want 3 stars acceptable standards to be the ceiling, like I think the previous government was prepared to leave it all. I want 3 stars acceptable standard to be the floor. I want everyone to be reaching to be a 4 and 5-star standard facility. I want to lift the standard of aged care in Australia, but we can't improve what we can't measure, and that's why star ratings kicking in for the very first time this week is a vital part of that process.
So how will you incentivise homes to achieve a better rating then, if 3 stars is going to be the floor, not the ceiling?
Well, because it's dynamic data and because people have the opportunity to work their way up the scale. So if they are a 3-star facility today, I think it's a really timely, and we worked so hard to make sure that we could deliver this before Christmas, because I know so many people are off to visit Nan this Christmas in the nursing home, and I want this to spark a conversation about what we as Australians are prepared to accept by way of standards of care in aged care. I want this to be information to arm you to have a discussion about how Nan is finding it and what you as an Australian taxpayer and an Australian citizen is prepared for us to do to lift that standard of care. I think we can be ambitious for aged care.
And what if they don't? I mean, will there actually be punishments if there are serious issues, if homes that slip in their ratings slip down a significant amount and don't make any effort to pull themselves back up again?
Yeah, absolutely. 1- and 2-star rated facilities are automatically referred to the regulator, and in many instances they're already aware of them because they've had compliance issues that they've failed. Ultimately, there are sanctions, and I guess ultimately, if residential aged care facilities are not up to scratch, they can have their federal government funding pulled.